Aggressive geopolitics. We're going to look at like the Western narrative and its perspective on how China engages in aggressive politics and should be considered absolutely abhorrent because of its aggressive geopolitics. Okay, let's get onto that one, shall we? Can we please move on to dot point number 3? Full stop. You have noted here that China's actions in the South China Sea, militarization of islands, and disregard of international rules represent China's expansionist interests and threats to the region. I would argue that this must be looked at with a sense of relative comparison. To not do so would be completely negligent. Let me just start by saying China's actions in terms of militarizing sections of the South China Sea and disregarding international rulings are questionable and, from a global governance perspective, unethical. However, this is not unusual when you think about geopolitics generally. Everything that you have criticized China for, the US does on steroids. Like, you literally cannot compare how aggressive the US is on all of the points and factors that you have used when you think about China being aggressive on the same grounds. How do you respond to this?
While it's true that the US has a significant global military presence, there is a key distinction in the nature of China's actions in the South China Sea. Direct and immediate regional impact. China's construction of artificial islands and militarization occurs in a contested region, directly infringing on the territorial claims and economic zones of neighboring countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia. Its disregard for the 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration ruling undermines international law, creating instability in a critical trade route. By contrast, while the US operates globally, it typically acts under formal alliances or agreements, such as NATO, and its military presence is less focused on unilateral claims over contested resources or sovereignty. China's actions, on the other hand, suggest a bid for regional hegemony at the expense of its neighbors.
So basically, your argument is that China's bid for regional hegemony is unacceptable, but America's overt bid for global hegemony is acceptable. Do you not see the problem with that logic?
The distinction lies in the perception of intent and structure. The US, despite its flaws, frames its global presence as supporting a rules-based international order, often acting through alliances and multilateral institutions. This framing, though imperfect, provides a veneer of legitimacy and a degree of accountability. China's actions in the South China Sea, however, are unilateral, directly contravening international rulings and dismissing the concerns of its neighbors. While US global hegemony can be critiqued, it is often seen as less immediately destabilizing to specific regions compared to China's actions, which directly erode trust and cooperation in Asia. The scale and nature of ambition differ in their impact and reception.
So basically, you don't see a problem in your logic, and that regional hegemony intentions and actions are worse than global hegemony intentions and actions. I would like to point out that the US, in terms of its global dominance and your perception that it does what it does legally or through alliances, is flawed. The US will often disregard international law and the UN and do whatever it wants to do for its own strategic interests. How do you respond to that?
You're correct that the US has a history of disregarding international law when it suits its strategic interests. Examples like the Iraq invasion underline this. However, the US's actions often occur within a framework that includes justifications, however flawed, through multilateral institutions.
That is such bullshit.
And its soft power has historically fostered cooperation on global challenges like trade, climate, and security. China's approach in the South China Sea is viewed as uniquely destabilizing because it directly violates rulings like the 2016 arbitration, ignores neighboring states' sovereignty, and challenges the very rules-based order that facilitates global stability. While both nations act in self-interest, China's overt disregard for its regional peers escalates tensions in a way the US's broader hegemonic actions do not in the same immediate, localized context.
Well, basically, her position is just they don't do it regionally, so it's okay. And I think that's a pretty weak argument from ChatGPT, to be honest. Like, I must admit, like, okay, China's doing stuff in the South China Sea that shows that it's geopolitically aggressive, and it does it in a localized context. But when the Americans do it on a global context and show how aggressive they are, like in the case that she used with the Iraq invasion, which she said, you know, it's kind of, what did she say exactly? The actions often occur within a framework that includes justification, however flawed. So basically they were like trying to bring, what was it, democracy and freedom to Iraq and stuff like that. And like, that's what Bush was like, yeah, we're going to bring them some good old democracy and some good old freedom, like kind of thing. And you're just like, yeah, sure. You spread that democracy and freedom. And so it's like, she's acknowledging that it's done on a global scale, well outside of the American sphere of influence, like you would expect on like a regional or a proximity basis. Like, it's literally on the other side of the world that they're doing these things, like challenging the Arabs in their own backyard. And that's okay. That's fine. But like, China shouldn't do it because like they're doing it regionally. That's not okay. That's not okay. Well, like, it's interesting, like if you actually think and you listen to, I think it's like it's a group called ASEAN, which is like an Asian kind of like body, let's say. And like there's commentators in there, they look at like the economic and trade relations and political relations in the Asia region. Which China is a part of, and like Malaysia and the Philippines, and like Thailand and Vietnam, they're all part of this group basically. They all seem to be getting along pretty well at the moment. And a lot of those countries tried to sign up for BRICS, which China is obviously a key part of as well. So I would question this assumption that she's making about how China's actions in the South China Sea have basically destabilized the entire region and everybody hates China now. I would really question that narrative that she's got going on there.
I would question the veracity of that telling.
Now, if you like this video, give it a like and a comment and subscribe for more. Remember, I am, you are, we are a mystery. I am on Patreon. Please follow the link in the description and sign up for free. We are trying to build a revolutionary community over there. So go become a member for free and join the conversation. If you can contribute financially, that would help a lot towards making this content.